Colleagues, you can get some insight on the source of the crisis that House Bill 3054A addresses by searching YouTube for manufactured home park investments. Among the captions of the videos that come up, you'll find blizzards of exclamation points. There's manufactured home RV parks, the best investments ever, 3 exclamation points. Why are mobile home investments so lucrative? Because they are so low maintenance, just 2 exclamation points. Mobile home parks are the best investment you could make. This one has 3 money bag emojis in a row instead of exclamation points. Now, as to the impact of this gold rush on older Oregonians, bring up the testimony page on HB 3054 on OLIS and read some of the nearly 500 postings in support of the bill. You'll find stories from seniors who thought that after decades of work and savings, they finally crossed the goal line of retirement security when they could finally purchase a manufactured home of their own and place it on a park space for a monthly rent of a few $100s. That security has been taken from many of them. The space rental rates in these parks, these best investments you can make with 3 exclamation points, have risen like rockets over time because they can. And they can uniquely among real estate investments for 2 reasons. One, the YouTube video is right. They are so low maintenance, 3 exclamation points. That's because unlike any other residential rental mode, apartment buildings, townhouses, individual houses, the park owner has no maintenance or repair obligations inside of these manufactured or floating homes. That falls on the homeowner that rents the space, not the park owner. The park owner has some overhead, some landscaping, often 1 or more utility bills, occasional road repair, but nothing compared to landlords and other rental modes. And second, at the heart of the matter, the critical piece that constrains rising price in normal market relationships is missing here. It's competition, where a customer is free to take their business elsewhere if they don't like what one vendor is offering. The staggering cost to move one of these homes from one park to another effectively makes these tenants captive consumers. And their infomercials say the quiet part out loud. This is a feature, not a bug. Permission to read briefly from material, Mr. President.
Without objection, Senator.
This is verbatim what one online pitch says right after describing the huge cost of moving a home from one park to another. Quote, so typically 98% of all mobile homes remain in the very spot where they were delivered from the factory. And because they don't move, the revenues are extremely stable, perhaps the most stable of any form of real estate. In all the other sectors, whether it's apartment or retail or office, it's a fact of life that residents come and go. And they can move about freely. It doesn't cost them very much money to move. They just hire a moving truck and off they go. But with a mobile home park, the cost of moving the mobile home is often more than the actual value of the mobile home. So consequently, they just stay right where they were. Every night when you go to bed, you know in the morning you'll still have the same customers there. Please let the meaning and consequences of that sink in. Mr. President, this economic reality is making lives miserable for too many seniors in our communities. These residents are typically on Social Security or other forms of sparse fixed income. Their rents rise 10% because the large institutional investors are contractually obligated to maximize return on investment for shareholders as the tenant's Social Security rises 3%. More than a few are choosing between paying rent and buying enough food. That's why this bill is before us. HB 3054 is a balanced path to support residents who are being priced out of parks and local park owners who have their own bills to pay. It lowers the maximum allowed annual rent increase for manufactured home parks and marinas to 6% from our current level of 7% plus CPI capped at 10%. Now, this 6% limit applies only to residents who own their own homes and have no real choice to take their business elsewhere. It does not apply to someone renting a manufactured home and can go elsewhere. As originally introduced, HB 3054 proposed to capping the maximum rent increase to only the rate of inflation, which many of their tenants have asked for. That cap was lifted on the House side to 6%, roughly twice as high as CPI. Now, Washington State just passed comprehensive rent cap legislation that copies our exact formula for rental rates generally, but recognizing the crisis facing park tenants, they limited their space rental increase to 5%, which is 1% lower than our bill provides. Another change the House made after hearing testimony on the particular budgetary challenges of managing smaller parks, the so-called moms and pops that aren't attractive to hedge funds, was to exempt parks and marinas with 30 or fewer spaces from this new bill. They are not affected at all by this. Another negotiated compromise allows the affected park owners, again, those with more than 30 spaces, to increase the rent once every 5 years up to 12% to address significant infrastructure repair, upgrade, or additional cost. That increase requires the approval of homeowners in at least 51% of the occupied spaces. We know that older parks face infrastructure issues. This section of the bill allows tenants who are emotionally and financially invested in the success of the park to weigh in on the improvements they're willing to pay for. The bill also keeps landlords from requiring tenants or purchasers to consent to or obtain an inspection of the interior of the home. That's the proper business of a buyer and a seller, not the park's management firm. Another change in the House was removal of a provision that limited increases to 10% when a home is sold to a new tenant. Park owners wanted that opportunity to reset rent to a higher level, so that cap is now gone. That's consistent with the logic of this bill, because someone coming in to consider buying the home can realistically take their business elsewhere if they don't like the rental rate for the space. They're not captive the way ongoing tenants are. Mr. President, we've been talking about this crisis for a long time now without resolution, maybe because the absolutely 100% perfect, flaw-free solution hasn't presented itself. But after all is said and done, we have only two options here. Number one, we can repeat past performance, turn away and ignore the undeniable fact that our seniors are suffering more and more over time because of how exciting all those exclamation marks are to investors. More and more Oregonians are in constant fear and turmoil that they won't be able to live out their lives securely after all. Some of them are literally losing their homes. But we can't choose to turn away again because this solution, like all those proposed before it, might have a flaw somewhere. Or we can take action. House Bill 3054, negotiated as it's been for months, adjusted to exempt parks with 30 or fewer spaces from the cap, adjusted to remove the cap entirely when a home changes ownership, adjusted to allow a doubling of the cap for infrastructure repairs when a majority of tenants agrees. House Bill 3054A is that action. It takes a crushing burden off the shoulders of a growing number of our seniors. Colleagues, let's not fail these seniors again based on cries that this will somehow torpedo this industry and our housing supply. If that were true, Oregon wouldn't be in the crosshairs of REITs and equity funds combing the world for the highest return safe investments. If these hedge funds don't like the 6% annual limit on space rentals, given the baseline profit they've already built in, the line of buyers who would love returns like this will stretch around the block. Not to mention groups of tenants who've organized around the state to craft proposals to buy the property together to create tenant-owned parks, only to be outbid by a mile by institutional investors who studied the math on why this is the best investment ever, 3 exclamation points. Mr. President, on behalf of growing numbers of seniors across our state who are trapped in a way that is ramping up the wealth of some of the nation's most lucrative hedge funds, equity funds, and REITs, I ask for support of House Bill 3054A. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.